Могу говорить уже, да? Okay. Greetings, everyone, and please welcome Education USA Alumni Fair. We are starting our talk segment. At 3 p.m. there's going to be an official fair opening. If you have any questions, please ask them at the fair. Okay. Our first speaker is Sophie Elizabeth Lazard from Bard College, and she's going to talk about liberal arts education in the U.S. So a little bit round of applause if you can.
Hello? Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be talking to you about liberal arts education. It's a bit different from the traditional style of education in Ukraine, but it's a very old and very common form of education, both in the United States and historically in Western Europe. So this is a picture of my college, Bard College. In the United States, college and university are interchangeable. So if I say college, it doesn't mean lyceum. It means actually a university, four-year university. All right, and if you look at this picture, this is a typical classroom in a liberal arts college. You notice the students are sitting around in a circle. They have the original text with them. They're not using a textbook. The professor is standing observing. He is not, lecturing to the students, but rather the focus is on classroom discussion. And here's a quote about educated and thoughtful citizenship. Okay, so what is a liberal arts education? First off, it's education suitable for the cultivation of a free human being. The word liberal arts comes from the Latin word liberalis, which means education suitable for a free person. And this refers to its origins in ancient Greece, when there was a class of free people, free ancient Greek men who participated in the forum, who participated in democracy, and they received an education that made them a well-rounded citizen capable of participating in democracy. So this is the education leading up to that. It offers a core curriculum that combines studies in the classics, so reading ancient Greek and ancient Roman texts, world literature, the humanities. I'll talk a little bit about what the humanities are, and moral virtues or ethical philosophy. And this is training to think for yourself rather than conforming to a higher authority. So as Socrates said, he really impressed upon his students the need to make an argument through reason, not indoctrination, not telling a student what to do, but rather having the student figure out what the most reasonable, logical answer would be. So this is what we're trained to do in the liberal arts, is to make a rational argument. And also it's based in the traditions of Western culture. We take our curriculum from what we call the Western canon, and that involves readings of Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, moving on to texts St. Augustine, Shakespeare, Dante, and into the 20th century. Okay? And here's some background, historical background on the liberal arts. It's rooted, like I said, in classical and medieval traditions of arts liberales. So studies that are for this free person, this idea of someone who's not just educated, but someone who also can participate in civic life. So it's education not just to make you an academic or to make you a specialist, but to make you someone who can participate in politics, participate in music, participate in theater, participate in the community as well. Ancient Greek men had to also participate in jury duty. They had to speak in the forum. So this is what this training is really traditionally for. Originally, the liberal arts were broken into 7 liberal arts. The first was the trivium, and that was grammar, logic, and rhetoric. You know, how to speak, how to think, and how to spread the message of what you're thinking about. And then the quadrivium, which was music, arithmetic, geometry, and astronomy, the applied study of numbers and logic. And this evolved throughout the Middle Ages into what we call the studia humanitatis. And so this is the study of the humanities. Many people think humanities, oh, that means being a great human, but really what it means is returning to this Greek ideal of someone who is both someone who can speak in politics, someone who knows art, someone who knows history, someone who's just a well-rounded citizen. And this included studying history, Greek, moral and ethical philosophy, and poetry. So what they thought would make a well-rounded person, not a specialist, but someone who could be a citizen, someone who could really participate in life. And you see this reflected in the United States, our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. These were people who did many different things. Benjamin Franklin. At one point, they're writing our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, but they are also creating significant discoveries in math, in the sciences. They're musicians as well. So it's this idea of this well-rounded Renaissance person, someone who doesn't just do one thing, but someone who can do many things well, who has a background in many different fields to be a good citizen. And that's something I think is missing from Ukrainian education, where you are very targeted and very specialized. This education, on the other hand, prepares you to go in many different fields. It gives you a base of knowledge to work with. And now today we have the humanities, which we believe is grounded in classical languages and literatures. So every study of the humanities begins with this ancient Greek or ancient Roman philosophical starting point. Okay. So what about the structure of the liberal arts? I'm giving you this ideal, version of what it is, but what does it look like on the ground? What does it look like in the classroom? The structure of the liberal arts is a broad exposure to multiple disciplines and learning strategies at the undergraduate and graduate level. So that means you are not, if you want to be, study English, it doesn't mean you just read English and you just do English. You are also taking classes in history. You're taking classes in science. You're taking classes in math. You're taking classes in the arts. You're taking classes across a broad field because we have the belief that taking different forms of study will improve what you want to focus on. So having, a mathematical training might be able to make you more introspective when you study English. So our whole point about the liberal arts is that you study a broad field. You get a broad background before you specialize. Usually liberal arts programs are at the undergraduate level. So it's usually maybe the first 2 years are specialized on this broad curriculum of reading ancient Greek, ancient Roman, Renaissance, Enlightenment texts before you specialize in your major. Occasionally there are graduate programs too that offer this liberal arts training. Most of them are usually associated with Catholic universities because this was a big part of Catholic education. But there's also interdisciplinary ones like at the University of Chicago. So it's also, like I said, it's not just this broad background that's really the foundation. It leads into an in-depth study in an academic discipline, and then extended scholarly research culminating in the thesis. So for me at my school, I had 2 years of really broad liberal arts education, and then I specialized in anthropology, the study of human culture, and then my senior year, my 4th and final year in university, I wrote a thesis. I did very specialized research on one topic. So it starts very broadly, and it culminates in you focusing on a subject. And this is good because it gives students the chance to explore different interests before they make that decision of what they want to commit their studies to. It gives students time to question what their interests are. And the emphasis is on interactive instruction. So you are in the classroom, you are working with the teacher. The teacher does not take a hierarchical position above you. The point is on learning together. It's on this education where you're speaking to the teacher is speaking back, you're asking questions, you're working together to discover new things from a text. So you could read Shakespeare over and over again, and each time you might find a new thing. So the teacher doesn't assume they have all the knowledge. Really, it's an interactive process to gain knowledge together. And this is emphasized in the structure of the liberal arts because we have residential colleges and universities. Students live on campus, and that emphasizes education outside of the classroom. You can continue the discussion in your dormitory. And also smaller enrollment. You know every student in your class, first name basis. You know about them, what they're interested in. You know the teacher, usually on a first name basis. The classroom sizes, on average, maybe 8 to 10 students. And you sit in usually a small circle and you have these discussions. And the student-teacher ratio, like I said, 8 students, 10 students to 1 teacher. So it gives a very intimate feeling for knowledge. And the teacher doesn't, isn't far away and won't talk to you. They'll really want to get to know you and what you're interested in pursuing. And this is different from our research universities in America, where the focus is on research, and most of the classes are taught by TAs or graduate students. In liberal arts colleges in the United States, the professor is there and teaches the class. And so then, of course, the goals. What is the outcome? What are you supposed to get out of this kind of education? And my point really is it's not about transferring knowledge. It's not about knowledge A goes into student B. It's really to raise fundamental questions about what is knowledge, what are ideas that you find in the text. So it's this cumulative process of reading and questioning and opening up your mind to new ideas and new thoughts, to think about what you believe and question that. Why do you believe that? You know, we don't often have an opportunity to question, okay, well, why are we studying this? What is the meaning of this? And that's the point of the liberal arts education, is to make you question what you already believe and why you believe it. So a teacher will often put you on the spot and say, well, why do you assume that? Why do you think that? And you have to defend yourself. And it will make you question what you've, become to believe. So it's a very powerful tool for gaining new knowledge. And also the study of original texts. We do not use textbooks. The original books are our teachers. So if we're studying Aristotle, we will read Aristotle's writings. If we are studying, Schopenhauer, we will read Schopenhauer. Some schools even go to the point where they teach you ancient Greek and Latin so you can read it in the original text. That was not my school, but it does happen. And you formulate original problems based on the study of these texts. So you're discovering them like you were living in that time. You're opening it up and you're reading it firsthand. The knowledge is not far away from you, but rather it's right there for you to read. And then you learn how to write about these concepts persuasively and perceptively. And that means you learn how to write a 5-paragraph essay. You learn how to write not saying, this is what I believe, but rather, this is what this author was writing about at this time, and this is what he was arguing. Sometimes we have to write a paper arguing our position, and then the teacher says, do it again, but argue the opposite thing. So you learn how to argue a point, even if you don't believe in it. And that's very important if you want to be a scholar, if you want to be a thinker. Oh. Can you make it big again? Oh. Okay, and the liberal arts curriculum. So this is what it looks like, 4 years of education. We begin with the Common Core, or the great books. So in my school, we began with Genesis. We read Genesis. We read Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. We went through the whole to the 20th century, and that gave us a real foundation. And then you choose your major program of study. Like I said, I chose anthropology. I took Anthropology 101, what is anthropology, and continued on. But we also had distribution requirements. I had to take one history class, one performing arts class, one study of art class, one science class with a laboratory, one math class, one social studies class, one humanities class. So you have to take a lot of classes, and that really helps you to focus in on what you want to study, but it also gives you a broad base of knowledge to pull from. And then you have electives. So if you're interested in something completely random, you can also take that too. And then, of course, it culminates in the thesis. You write 100 pages, maybe 60 to 100 pages on something a question you're very focused in. And you develop this with your advisor to create this topic and to write about this and perform original research. So at the end of your graduation, you've created something new. And then, of course, there's always room for educational experimentation. I had many classes with professors who taught outside, or they wanted to question the traditional student-teacher relationship. So we were doing a lot of different techniques for learning in the classroom. We had classes where if it was a class about, the American legal system, they would take us on field trips to the courtroom so we could see it firsthand. That's the type of educational experimentation that we have. Or also problem-based learning, where we would focus on one problem very in-depth in one class. And like I said, in the classroom, we have what's called the Socratic seminar, taken from Socrates, and this is a small-scale discussion-based class. So the teacher sits you down, and you begin with some questions to kind of pull out, well, what were we saying? What is this person arguing? What do we think about this? What is he trying to get at? Did you see anything in the text? And you debate and you re-examine your ideas. It's not just, did you like this? It's not memorization and regurgitation. It's thinking, well, what is the point of this? What tools does this writer use to get to this point? How is this effective? How is it not? We do many different written exercises too, like we imagine maybe I'm having a conversation with this writer. What would they say to me? What would I say back? If I read this text backwards, what would it say? What would it mean? Would the meaning change? If this person was alive today, how might their argument be different? How might it be the same? So we do a lot of play with the text, a lot of experimenting with the text. And like I said, it's a focused engagement with core texts and artworks. So it's not about reading a textbook, it's not about memorizing things, it's about reading an original piece of work. And then you develop these critical, analytical writing skills, how to think about thinking. How do I make a logical argument? How do I get from point A to point B? And this really is an intellectual adventure. You can see how you're able to develop this thinking, too. You were able to see, wow, I can see how this person made an argument, and I can make these points to refute this argument logically, or I can make these points to agree with this argument, or I can switch it around. So you really learn how to use your mind in the classroom. And so these are some questions we grapple with in the classroom. What does it mean to be human? What, how, and why do we value things or people? What is the difference between a citizen and a subject? What makes a good society? What is political freedom? What is personal freedom? Are these different? Are these the same? Are they interrelated? We don't always have these questions in a Ukrainian classroom, but these are questions that should be asked. These are questions that should be brought to the classroom. And you can think about, well, how do I make an answer to these questions? When I start to think, what makes a good society? What do I start thinking about? What are the values I have that make me think what a good society would be? What thinking do I bring? What previous things have I read that would inform my answer for a good society? What would I have to read? What would I have to write to make my point further? So that's what we do in the classroom. We think about these questions, and we read texts that help shape our answer to these questions. And like I said, we don't always end on an answer. There's not always, question, answer. Some of these questions are open-ended. They're shifting. They're changing. So that's another point of our education, is it's never just educated, done. The process of continuous learning. Your opinion is always changing. And so this is an example of some of the texts that we had to read our freshman year. We do a lot of reading. If you're not ready to read a lot, it's maybe not the right education for you. We do a lot of reading. From Hannah Arendt, Plato, Plutarch, Shakespeare, Rousseau, and these all shape, this is a lot of this seminar was about the question of political freedom. So all the texts were geared toward trying to get an answer about what we think political freedom is, what other people have said political freedom is. And then a model syllabus. So you see how we go about week by week, starting with, we're reading Plato for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then Plutarch, and then Shakespeare. So you see the evolution of the classroom. We read this many pages, and then we're in class, we're talking about it. Maybe we write an essay about it. And then we bring the essay in class, we share our essays with each other, we read, we piece out what's good about this person's essay, what needs work. So we're reading and we're writing. It's very classical style of education. So the question is, all right, well, great, liberal arts. Well, what does it mean for me? I'm trying to find a job. I'm trying to be educated. How is reading, a bunch of Aristotle going to help me find a job in today's labor market? Well, we live in an increasingly complex labor market. I'll tell you about the United States is they're not looking for people to work in factories. We don't have any factories in the United States. They're looking for people who can think, people who can talk, people who can write. If you want to work in business, CEOs don't want someone who can just follow the rules. They want someone who's able to innovate, someone who's able to create new information. So having a liberal arts background teaches you how to think and teaches you how to write persuasively. It gives you a broad knowledge and transferable skills. It doesn't matter what field you're in. If you can write, you can move forward. If you can think, it means you're capable of doing things, capable of advancing a company, capable of advancing a business. If you can't think, your business probably might encounter some problems. It also gives you a strong sense of values, ethics, and civic engagement. So beyond just saying, okay, how can I make money? It also teaches you how to be a citizen, how to be a person. And right now you can agree that, maybe you think the political culture is lacking. But with this kind of education, it really teaches you how to be a responsible citizen, how to participate. Because in the United States, we believe education is not just good for making a living, it also teaches you how to interact with society. And it's global and pluralistic. Many American students, they study abroad. And they learn a foreign language. And this gives them an increased perspective about the world around them. And reading foreign texts, reading Tolstoy in class, it gives you a new idea about different cultures. And that's incredibly important because, like I said, we live in this international, global, technological, complex market. So reading and writing never go out of style. You know, you can learn how to program an iPhone, but we might not have iPhones in 10 years. Maybe we'll have something else. But reading and writing and being able to think, it will always be relevant. So I end with this quote about how liberal arts produces people who are open-minded, free from provincialism, dogma, preconception. So this means someone who's willing to think outside the box, not just subscribe to the beliefs that are given to them, free from ideology, conscious of their opinion and judgments. So you're thinking, well, you know, what am I doing? You're reflecting on your decisions. You're reflecting on your thought processes. You're thinking, am I making a moral decision? Am I making an ethical decision? It's reflective of your actions and aware of your place in the social and natural worlds. So it's not education just for a job. It's education to be a better person. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I think I can take them. Oh, no questions. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Sophie. And